We can't forget that this is an information war on so many different levels. And so now is the time for the information to come out a bit more forcefully than it has already. Because yes, the people that are paying attention like us, we know what's going on, but we're awake. We're not tuned into the mainstream media anymore. We're tuned into the truth. We're tuned into logic and common sense and connecting with other human beings who are the same. And so for us, this is unbelievably obvious, but for the masses of people out there, I hate to tell you, folks, it's just not that simple. And this is what we have to contend with because of the massive portion of the population they currently represent. But it's time for this covert stage to come to an end. And so I expect now in the days and weeks that we're going to see some real action that can't be denied. Now, on the topic of the quantum financial system, I mentioned this earlier, and always Simon has interesting things to say about it. And today he made some very interesting comments about the people that are claiming that there's no quantum financial system. And I'm not going to start naming people, but folks know who they are. And I'm not knocking these people specifically. I'm really just reporting and providing some commentary on what Simon had to say on this issue. And his contention is that those people that are denying the existence of the quantum financial system are the very same people who have been left out of the loop and therefore aren't receiving any intel on the rollout or the implementation of this new financial system. And he actually took it a step further to suggest that these individuals were not included because they're not the right kind of people. And those are his words. That they have a lack of spirituality and rather have a lot of anger inside them. And he actually referred to these people as, quote, broken people who can't believe the good guys have a system where good is rewarded. And I have to be honest with you, folks, I really tend to agree. I really do. Because there's a reluctance out there to believe, even on the part of some really well-intentioned good people, good patriots, there's a reluctance to believe that good people are taking control and creating a better system. And that reluctance, in large part, is due to what I just finished talking about, which is people not seeing enough overt action and proof of what's actually going on. And they're tired of hearing about what's happening behind the scenes. And I get that. And with that comes with this reluctance to believe that good people, again, are taking control and creating a better system. And Simon actually, he also pointed out that many of these people who tell you that there's no quantum financial system, that it doesn't exist, are paid disinformation agents. Now, I don't know who exactly he was referring to. I certainly have my own suspicions about certain folks. I'm not going to name any names, of course, but not unless I come to any hard conclusions that are backed by evidence. But to me, it's very naive to think that the White Hats have a plan to rid the world of evil and to give the people their power and their freedom back, and that doesn't include a new financial system based upon the absolute best technology that's available. Now, Simon would tell you that these people don't know anything about that technology, have no intel about it, no insight about it, and therefore they don't believe it exists. They think it's a figment of somebody's imagination because they don't have any intel of their own. And they're used to having or being in a position of having intel on certain issues. But the quantum financial system was very, very, very tightly controlled, and only the right type of people, certain people, were chosen to be a part of it. And we know how far back this goes. This goes back to the origins of the Q plan. I mean, Kennedy was killed because he was going to bring back a gold and silver asset-backed currency. And like Simon talked about, if you fast forwarded from the Kennedy era, where the Q plan was really born, to 9/11, and then you go back and you research Building 11, that was filled to the brim with gold that was stolen by the cabal to prevent the emergence of this precious metal-backed asset system, which at that point in time was scheduled to be revisited in Congress in October of 2021. And guess what? That never happened. So like I said, the JFK assassination initiated the Q plan, and then the events of 9/11 basically represented strike two against this effort to perform a worldwide RV of currency to liberate we the people of slavery to the Federal Reserve. I mean, that's the core of why the middle class, of why humanity all over the world has been squeezed almost out of existence, is because of our slavery to the Federal Reserve. So for folks to claim that the most brilliant minds in this unbelievable military operation is taking place, and yet there's not going to be a new financial system that's going to be actually backed by precious metals, asset-backed currency, to me, that's just, it's foolish to even think that way. And the White Hats knew that they really only had one chance after 9/11 to really get this right. And we know that the emergence of the NSA, particularly the spy grid, presented the opportunity that they were waiting for. Because yes, even the bad guys became slaves to their own system that were, of course, nets meant to catch us, but they were turned against them. And yet, despite the evidence we've seen and accepted, by the way, many cynical people, they just can't fathom the scope of this plan. And so what do? They deny it exists. It's like the old saying goes. I mean, people fear what they don't understand. They want to deny its existence. And this is because small-minded people can't accept the plausibility of grand ideas. Small-minded people can't accept or fathom large ideas. And this has always been the case throughout history. There are those who have faith and vision to see both the future and the truth. And there are those who lack it, who have no choice but to undermine it, with conclusions that, quite frankly, are not only rooted in ignorance, but they're really rooted in, if not stupidity, then complete naivety. When one looks at the scope of this entire picture, to think that there's not going to be a quantum financial system, to me, doesn't make any sense. So after 9/11, the White Hat operation, they grew in size and scope. And I didn't realize this at the time. Simon talked about this. He talked about how after 9/11, they recruited many, many civilians. The White Hats. They recruited many civilians, whose job it was to infiltrate the enemy and to provide intel. And the reality of this operation is far bigger than most people realize, and it involves individuals they never would have expected. And although the Q plan is compartmentalized, it involves a large number of people. Many more than you probably realize, who are determined and completely committed to ridding the world of evil. Now, what Trump did, perhaps most significantly in his role as commander-in-chief, was to issue a number of executive orders vital to the execution of the plan. And really, he did that more in wearing the administrative hat, as Juan Savin explains, the two different hats of the president. But the reality is that Trump and his issuing of these executive orders were completely vital to the execution of the Q plan. Because what this did was it allowed the good guys to lay the groundwork, the legal groundwork, to go after the cabal even after Trump had left office. And this is exactly what we've been referring to during our discussion of the devolution COG strategy that's being executed behind the scenes. Because Trump's executive orders provided, like I said, the legal framework for devolution, which is what is occurring as we speak. The pantomime, the plan, devolution, those are all synonyms, folks. They're one and the same. But the key to understanding the devolution process is that the global financial reset of the quantum financial system is the underlying goal, one of the chief underlying goals of this entire plan. Without it, the plan doesn't make any sense. Because if at the end of the day, we're still debt slaves and we haven't been liberated economically, and what's been stolen from us hasn't been returned, then really, are we better off? In the long run, especially. So the underlying goal of this entire plan was the quantum financial system, which obviously required the extermination of, which was the primary moral objective prior to ending debt slavery, of course. Human slavery needed to be brought to an end. And boy, have we talked about that on this show. But the reality is, folks, is that upwards of 20%, maybe even up to 25% of the population simply won't accept the truth. Because it would require introspection and self-analysis, and which they're simply incapable of. But a great many people who have been resistant to the truth will awaken, and they're going to need our assistance as time goes on to help them understand and to come to terms with what was lacking in their own discernment. And I love the fact that Simon really dug into this, because this is really fundamentally important to understand as patriots. Why have you been awakened? Why have you been chosen to see the truth while everybody around you is blind to it? Is there a more important topic for us to discuss? Because what's going to happen in this process of us helping them understand and coming to terms in what was lacking in their own discernment, it's also going to be a process by which people are once again going to reconnect with God. And they're going to recalibrate their moral compass with the help of their fellow patriots, us, the people who are awake.